Hi friends, it's Kristi. Thanks so much for being here with me. In this episode, we're going to answer, how do I get financial transformation without sacrificing today? So let's answer it. How do we get financial transformation without sacrificing today? So it starts off first and foremost with mindset. I truly believe mindset is 80% of what makes us successful with anything that we take on in our lives. So think about this. You were a child when you started learning about money. Your parents demonstrated certain things about money. You saw how people behaved when it came to money, what they spent it on, what they didn't spend it on. If your parents fought about it, if they just never discussed it, you knew that your parents left every day to go and make money so you could have those things that you have in your life. But what does that translate to as an adult? So we've made some decisions based on some experiences that we've had growing up. I remember when I first started earning my own paycheck as a teenager, I knew that if I did this, then I would get that. And I just kind of kept doing that as a default until it didn't work anymore. And then as I arrived in my 20s, I'm like, oh, okay, that isn't working anymore. And now I've got to do this in order to get that. By that time, guys, I had multiple maxed out credit cards. I had no money in the bank. And I was like kind of living this life like, why am I here? How did I arrive here? How do I work all of these hours and I'm barely able to pay my bills and I have nothing left over to play with, to save, to get towards my next financial goal? So if that's where you find yourself, first and foremost, you've got to come to the realization that a child is running your financial life. So we've made these decisions as a kid. We've kind of been living into it as an adult. And now we've got to make some changes that are going to be fruitful changes for us. But first and foremost, we've got to have a mindset shift. We've got to realize that what we've been doing may have kept us safe, may have kept us shelter over our head and food in our tummies, but it may not be the most efficient way to move forward when it comes to your finances. Next, we've got to have the belief that you can actually make the changes that are required in order to have the financial health and wealth that you desire. So if you don't believe it's possible, if you don't physically see yourself arriving at your end goal, it's just going to be somebody else's dream. It's just going to be something that's out there that is so far-fetched you can't even reach it. So you've actually physically got to see yourself there. If it's a certain home, if it's a certain career, if it's a certain car, if it's a certain lifestyle that includes travel or being able to go to any restaurant that you want to without having to worry if you can afford it, you physically, actually, mentally, emotionally, all of it, you have to see yourself in it, there. And if you don't believe that it's there, it will never really, truly come alive for you. So if you can physically see yourself there, you can work backwards on the steps in order to get you from where you're at right now to where you want to be. So our finances are highly emotional. Although we don't really say that it's emotional, we don't really discuss that it's emotional, it's very emotional. As a mortgage loan officer for my career, I am helping people get into their largest financial decision of their life, their largest debt that they've ever taken on. And you guys, it should be just solely a financial decision, and it winds up being a highly motivated, emotionally based decision. So I see the impact that emotion and money have together in our decisions moving forward with even our very big, large purchases, but also our little, small purchases. You see some people with their behaviors with shopping therapy. I know you've got that friend. I might even be talking to you that in order to feel a little boost of happiness or fulfillment, you have to go out and buy something shiny and new. Yeah, I got you. It's the emotional aspect that you're trying to fulfill there. So let's remove the emotional aspect from this. How do we do that? I want you to treat your finances, your personal financial economy, like a business. So how would you run your life if your life were a business? You would follow some standard operating procedures. You would follow a budget. You would follow policies and procedures, right? You would treat it like a business. You would schedule out your time. You would schedule out where your money is going, where your energy and your attention is going, and who's on board with you as far as like your employees. So instead of having employees, maybe you have a personal board of directors that holds you accountable to your goals. If you can't get a couple of people in your life like a personal board of directors, perhaps consider getting a mentor that you trust and an accountability partner. And you guys, it can't be somebody who's going to let you off easy, okay? Your spouse or your life partner, they might let you off easy because they love you and they just want you to be happy. But it might need to be somebody who's going to be able to really say the hard things when it needs to be said, like, hey, this was your written goal, this was your budget, and then this happened. Let's talk about that and what went wrong. And how do we keep that from going wrong next time? You need somebody to really, truly keep you accountable. Now, here's a little side note, but I want to make sure that you get this. Do not take advice or do not listen to life advice from somebody that you are not willing to switch places with in their life. So if they're not really crushing it financially, if they've got a different career every other month, or they had a bankruptcy recently, or just mismanagement of money, not always making the best decisions, please don't follow their advice. Please don't go to them to be your accountability partner. Fair enough? Okay. So how do we get into action? First and foremost, with this new mindset, we've got to overcome our default way of being, just how we just kind of showed up every single way. So first steps first, let's create a budget. You can Google a simple budget. It's not going to be difficult to find one online, but make sure that it is all encompassing. I think where most people fail with the budget is we don't really look at all of our outflow, all of our expenses, and put those down. So like, for instance, I have pets. Carrying costs of pets are so much more than just the food cost, right? You've got your Next Guard and your heartworm, you've got your vet visits, you've got teeth cleaning. My gosh, why is it a couple $100s to clean pets' teeth? It's crazy. So just keep that in mind when you've got your pets. Your kids' expenses are way more than you are putting down on paper. So you might have school uniforms and those clothes that they outgrow in 2 weeks, their food, their sports and activities, all of the birthday parties they get invited to. You've got to buy birthday gifts and pay for their Chuck E. Cheese pizza and all of those things, right? Make sure you list all of that. Do you entertain? Do you have hobbies? I know for me in August, my electric bill is 3 times what it is in February. So it also depends on what time of the year you're doing your budget. Christmas time obviously is going to have a lot more Christmas gifts and those kinds of things than say other times of the year. So keep in mind gift giving. We've got all of these Hallmark holidays, right? We've got to account for. So be real with yourself when you create a budget. And it's not a bad idea to update that, if not monthly, at least quarterly, because things change in your life quite often. So first and foremost, let's follow a budget. Here's what's going to happen when you look at that budget. You're going to go, oh man, that's where it's all going. That's why there's none left for me to save or just even have a little bit of fun with. This is why most people have to put their vacation times on credit cards, because there's no money left over to put towards that savings goal to be able to pay cash money for our travel. So look at that budget, and if it hurts, welcome to how it's supposed to feel. Like it's just what it is. It hurts for all of us, but this is an opportunity for us to start making changes. So what can you cut out of your life? Again, not from a place of scarcity, but if this were a business, you would have to make some adjustments, right? So you would look at where you could cut a little bit of outflow, where you're putting some of your money, to be able to have a little bit of breathing room and maybe even an opportunity for savings. So start looking at where you can cut. If it turns out that Starbucks addiction of yours is just a little bit more costly than what you gave credit to, perhaps you buy the Starbucks and you make it at home instead of going through the drive-through. There's some things in your life that you can cut out and not sacrifice enjoyment today. So start looking at some of those things that you can actually be okay without. I'll give you an example. I have a written goal that I'm going to read or listen to 50 books this year. And in order to do that, I do listen to some audiobooks and I also read actual paper books. But you guys, I don't buy all of them from bookstores, and I don't subscribe to one of those subscription services that cost you $15 each audiobook. I go through a free app called Hoopla that is attached to my free library card, and they have thousands of audio and ebooks for which you can choose from. It doesn't cost me anything, and I can get 8 titles a month absolutely for free. Also, I love buying books from like secondhand stores or seeing if I can borrow something from a friend. So if that can work for you in your life, maybe you guys can do a book swap. See who's part of book clubs if reading books is into something that you're into. And see if you can exchange books with people when they're done with it and then pay it forward. So just an idea of where you can cut back, $15, $20, $25. Sometimes people are spending $50 a month on books. So just an idea of where you can kind of free up some of your money. So you might have a quality control person on staff if you were running a business. So make sure that you have a quality control person in your life. Again, if that's a mentor, that's awesome. If that's you, that's okay. Just make sure that what you're spending your money on is the best way for your money to get spent. So a couple of things. I follow a grocery list when I go to the grocery store, because otherwise I fill up my cart with a whole bunch of stuff I don't necessarily need, or I might overbuy some food. So my refrigerator is stuffed with some things that I wind up throwing away because I couldn't get to it in time and it went bad, and then I just wasted all that money. I also stand in line at the grocery store and there's all those impulse buys around me. So I'm like, hey, let me get that $2 pack of gum or this extra, granola bar or whatever. So all of those things, you guys, add up. Also, sometimes when you buy cheaply, you're winding up replacing something or using more of that thing than what it would cost if you actually got the name brand. So if a name brand can go a little bit further or last you a little bit longer, I'm going to suggest that you go that way. Spend a little bit more up front. You'll probably get more of it out of the backside. Now, also where you shop, that makes a difference, right? If you shop at kind of fancy grocery store, it's going to cost you more than if you went to, say, an Aldi's or a Winn-Dixie or something like that. Don't be afraid to stock up on buy one, get ones, and don't be afraid to look and see if there's any online coupons before you walk into the grocery store. So I'll be honest, I go to the dollar store for stocking up on a lot of things. I get my toothbrush, my toothpaste, my Fabuloso and cleaning supplies at the dollar store. It costs a lot less there than it does at some of the large stores where you wind up going in and filling up your cart with some unnecessary items. Okay, so now that we have some ideas about the how-to, let's have our operating plan merge with our strategic plan. So what does that mean as it relates to ourselves as a business? So an operating plan is going to be how we do things. The strategic plan is like the strategy in which we need to think about. So you know now that your default way of being has been just kind of running the show. So as far as your strategies, I want you to write down what happens or what shows up when you just have to do something, right? So there's a bill that comes up or an emergency or your paycheck comes in and you know these next few things. What is your default way of being, and where can you override that a little bit or follow this operational plan moving forward that might help you free up a few dollars? So again, start writing down how you've handled things in the past, that strategy in which you've been operating under, and maybe create a couple of new plans. Here's an idea. If you want to save 10% of your take-home income in this next 12 months, how do you get there, right? So first and foremost, you might want to start a savings account that's separate from your checking account. Your checking account, your operating expenses, right? Your income comes in and you operate out of it. You pay all of your expenses out of there. So perhaps you start a savings account that's separate from your checking account. Wouldn't hurt if it were at a separate bank, maybe an online place where you can't get to it very easily. And what if you started off with just 3% of your take home or 5% of your take home, a very small amount where perhaps you don't miss it, but it automatically goes into that savings account from every single paycheck. So now you're kind of forced to work with this remaining amount that's in your operating expenses in your checking account. So you'll kind of just be forced to figure it out, right? So that's one way to go about it. Maybe you can make a list of some things that you would be okay with cutting out. It really wouldn't change your way of being or your quality of life. Say maybe you could be just okay with not having such and such for the next couple of months. Or let's think about cable, right? I know a lot of people that are paying hundreds of dollars for cable. Maybe you can just reduce the package a little bit and free up $30 or $40 a month that way. So that money can then start going into savings to help you in propelling forward in that momentum towards getting towards your goal. Or maybe it is, I really want to pay off this high interest credit card. It's been around for years. I've only been feeding that minimum payment, which is only paying interest, and I just really want to get it gone. So start in writing. Maybe you can brainstorm with that accountability partner of yours 2 or 3 ways in which you can bring in a little extra money. Maybe pick up a side gig, help somebody out, or a friend or a coworker for a couple of bucks. Something where you can get a little bit more money coming in than your standard regular income. Maybe you can work some overtime, those kinds of things. Maybe there's something you could sell that's been sitting in your closet and just wasting a lot of space for you. I know I just spent a couple $100 on a used bike. So I helped somebody clean out their garage and my bike had fallen apart. I love biking, and so I needed a new used bike, right? So they got $200 in their pocket and cleaned out the garage. The guy said he hadn't been using it for a very long time. So what's around that you could potentially sell? And then last thing I want to say about the strategic plan, make sure there's a date. If it's something that's just at some point in time, one day, someday, whenever, you're not going to find that motivation to really get you there quickly, to actually experience that transformation that you are desperately seeking. So have a date. Make it a realistic date. Don't make it 2 days from now or 2 weeks from right now. If it's something that is really big and important to you, set a date that is obtainable, but also pushes you a little bit. So we've got to have kind of like a diet, right? Like if you started dieting or you started working out, you're not going to see instant results. And the same thing with transforming how you run your household budget and your finances. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay. I need you to know you've got to make these tiny little shifts in order to have larger results down the road. But once you start seeing a couple little things free up, all of a sudden you've got a little bit of money in that savings account. That feels good. After a couple of months worth of really working hard, that credit card that has been costing you a lot of money and interest is finally paid down to a zero balance and no longer costing you interest. You'll start having these smaller little victories, and you guys, sometimes a victory requires getting a little dirty. So what's it going to take for you to obtain that victory for you? Put it in writing. Have a date, and then make sure that in writing is someplace that you can see it and remind yourself, so that way you can help your subconscious get into action for you, so you can hit that date without having to sacrifice today. You should still enjoy the present moment. But if you follow a structured plan, a strategic plan that includes some operating principles, right? Like this is how we're going to do it, and a budget, you will find huge transformation once you can finally take control and take charge of that little kid that's been running your financial life for you all this time. Thanks so much for watching. If you have some credit issues, questions, you just want to learn more about credit and how it affects you and your finances, I invite you to join me on my podcast. It's Credit Coaching by Kristi. If you are looking for an actionable plan to get you from where you're at right now to $10,000 in savings, I invite you to creditkristi.com, where I have a course there called Prosperity Guide Map with step-by-step videos and worksheets to help you get unstuck and exactly to the goal of $10,000. Could you imagine $10,000 in savings? What you could do with that? You could start a business. You could have a down payment for a home. You could walk into a financial advisor's office, confidently and say, I am in a mindset savings and I have something to get started off with because I want a financial future I can get excited about. I don't want to be working at Walmart at 85 years old. I want to retire and be able to enjoy kids and grandkids and travel and food and whatever else might be important to you. So thanks for being with me on this video. If you like this, please hit the subscribe button. I will be sharing new videos all about money, all about mindset, and all about becoming the best versions of ourselves moving forward. Thanks for being here.